Alabama's first football scrimmage yields impressive results, and the Tide picks up another commitment for the class of 2015. Tider Insider TV will discuss it all with you, and we'll discuss it all right now.
Go inside.
Did they not give
Crimson
you a rundown?
Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
The Crimson Tide stepped on the football field at Bryant-Denny Stadium for the first time this spring, this past Saturday. There were some impressive numbers, but there was also a key injury to an important member of the Alabama secondary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Once again tonight, enjoying ice cold Pepsi Next. Pepsi Next, all the great Pepsi flavor, 2/3 less sugar than regular Pepsi, only 60 calories per 12-ounce can. And that is good. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. And more on the injury situation in a moment. But first, it's our Tuscaloosa Tractor top story. Tuscaloosa Tractor reminds you, don't you buy no ugly tractor. Rodney, not a lot of ugly that came out of the Tide's first scrimmage. In fact, everything seemed to go pretty well. And Nick Saban was impressed even with what he saw from scrimmage number 1.
Yeah, it's hard to say in terms of what, because we don't get to see any of the scrimmage, but I know that Blake Sims, as you see him throw there, really had a good day, Gary. I know we'll talk about the stats later, but, you know, he hit Amari Cooper with a long touchdown pass, 75 yards, and from people who did get an opportunity to see it, they really raved about the improvement that Blake Sims has made.
Indeed, more on Blake Sims in a moment. Amari Cooper, regardless of who the quarterback is going to be a big-time target, and he had a huge day, close to 200 yards in receptions, including a 75-yard touchdown strike from Sims. He caught 2 touchdowns total. He is a weapon.
He is, and there's some other guys to go with him, Gary, of course, and Raheem Falcons had a nice scrimmage, according to those who had an opportunity to see it. Another guy who really shined was the freshman wide receiver, Cameron Sims, who made a couple of really big catches. So there's some guys to go with him. We know about the other guys, Christian Jones, DeAndre White, of course, didn't participate. But, you know, several other receivers, Chris Black, among others.
Of course, defensively, a lot of positions up for grab on the defensive line, at linebacker, and in the secondary. You know, what have you been able to find out about what happened on the defensive side?
Well, obviously, Trey DePriest, you know, had a good scrimmage. Gary led in terms of the tacklers for the scrimmage. He had led that way and that way. But also a guy to watch, Gary, is Sean Dion Hamilton. I think when you look at the inside linebackers, they're certainly going to need some depth there. You know, we know that Reggie Ragland and Reuben Foster are competing to start alongside of Trey DePriest, but you always need depth. You need guys that can play in the event of injuries and so forth. And Sean Dion Hamilton, the true freshman from Montgomery Carver, had an outstanding scrimmage.
All right, Nick Saban, we told you, overall seemed to be really pleased with how the first scrimmage went down. Here now is the coach talking about what happened on Saturday.
For the first scrimmage, I was really pleased with the effort and the intensity that the players had. I really like the attitude of this team in terms of how they go about what they try to do and how they work and the effort that they give, the mental and physical toughness that we play with. A lot of guys trying to be conscientious to do a good job, and it shows in the way we play, the way we compete.
And here are the numbers, at least those that were released by the athletic department, sports information. Blake Sims, great numbers, 16 of 23, 227 yards, those 2 touchdown passes. Drake led the rushers, followed by Henry and Yeldon. Cooper's numbers off the charts, 10 catches, 190 yards, and 2 touchdowns. As Rodney alluded to on defense, you expect Trey DePriest, the senior, to be the leader, not just in terms of production, but also in terms of all the intangibles, and certainly he lived up to that on Saturday. So a lot of positive, Rodney, came out of the scrimmage, but there was a negative for the Crimson Tide in that secondary. Sophomore Eddie Jackson, who probably projects as one of the starting quarterbacks, and was having a great spring, out the remainder of spring with a torn ACL. Now, a few years ago, we might have said out for the season, but the projections are positive that he'll be back for the fall.
Yeah, and I think that would be really outstanding, Gary. He's a tremendous prospect in terms of his ability and the things that he can do physically. I think, you know, Gary, when you look at him, we saw what he did in the game. He started last year against Ole Miss, and he also started the Oklahoma game and did really well. So when you certainly know that Alabama has some question marks in terms of, you know, trying to find those corners and he was going to be a key part, and hopefully he can return.
All right, Nick Saban put out a statement on Monday. Here is the statement. You can read it there on your screen. The short of it is the coach. I'll just read it to you. We have a great medical staff here, and we will have the full support of everyone in the organization as he goes through the rehab process. We are confident Eddie will make a full recovery and be ready to go this fall. Of course, in the short term, the interim, both quarterback spots now up for grabs. Of course, Tony Brown, the freshman, Cyrus Jones, Bradley Sylvie both have experience. Those guys are going to get a lot of reps working at the cornerback position. Maury Smith for the rest of the spring.
Mm-hmm. And you've got guys coming in the fall. You obviously have Marlon Humphrey coming in. You have Anthony Averett, who was redshirted last year as a freshman. So, you know, there's guys to choose from, Gary. And when you look at it, I think that's the good news, is you have a lot of good, young, talented players. It's just a matter of developing them, getting them some experience.
All right, when you don't have an established starter at the position, well, quarterback might be the most talked about position anyway, but it certainly is when you're looking for a quarterback. Jacob Coker will not come in until after spring. So several guys battling out, but the fifth-year senior, Blake Sims, we showed you the numbers. He's really looked good so far this spring and seemed to take a big step on Saturday at the quarterback position. You know,
again, he has, from everybody that's watched and had an opportunity to watch more than we've watched, they've been very impressed with the strides that Blake Sims has seemed to make. And, you know, we've talked about Lane Kiffin and the value that, you know, of having him here and, you know, the things he's done in terms of developing quarterbacks. And it's, you know, you just wonder, has he already, you know, made a significant impact with Blake Sims? I mean, because from the people you talk to, Blake Sims looks like a different kind of guy throwing the football, at least in that scrimmage. So, again, you look at the progress that Blake's made. Not only he's an outstanding passer, Gary, but he's an outstanding runner as well.
In fact, following the scrimmage, Coach Saban said Sims, along with Alec Morris and Cooper Bateman, had distanced themselves a little bit from the rest of the quarterbacks.
Blake has had a really good spring and has taken some command. Cooper Bateman has made a lot of improvement, done a nice job. Alex still, you know, competing. So, you know, those three guys have sort of emerged as the three guys that look like they're most ready to play.
And Alabama will hold another scrimmage on Saturday before the 8A game on April the 19th. Well, much more Tighter Insider TV is coming up. Alabama held its second pro day today. We'll hear from Vinny Sinceri on his pro prospects and bouncing back from that knee injury. That's next. Plus, a big offensive line commitment for 2015 comes aboard. We'll talk about Richie Petitbon, how he fits into the future plans on Alabama's offensive line. And coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information there on your screen on how you can get in touch with us. Interact with Tighter Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a call. Send us an email or contact us on social media. As always, we want to hear from you. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tighter Insider TV returns after the break. You know, most schools have one pro day, but when it comes to football, everything is bigger and better in Tuscaloosa. Alabama held its second pro day today. Several former Crimson Tiders showed their stuff for NFL scouts for a second time, and some for their first opportunity. That list included C.J. Mosley, Cyrus Kwanjo, and Vinny Sinceri. Vinny is recovering from an ACL surgery less than 6 months ago, but he's been fueled in terms of his comeback by a current NFL running back that came back from the same injury very quickly.
And the one person he worked out that I've tried to emulate is Adrian Peterson coming off his ACL, and he worked out with Adrian Peterson. He said, I'm right neck and neck with Adrian Peterson about how I came off my surgery, how I've recovered. You know, it was just an ACL, so, you know, it wasn't meniscus, wasn't MCL, wasn't any cartilage, so clean tear, came back good, and just, it was a great experience. I feel awesome.
Rodney, he was talking about Dr. James Andrews. That's high praise, comparing Vinny to Adrian Peterson in terms of how quickly he's come back from that injury. You know, he said it today. Hey, I'm going to prove the doubters wrong. I know what I'm doing. I did this with the blessing of my family and Coach Saban. I'm ready to go to the NFL. I'm healthy. And, you know, you got to admire his stick-to-itiveness, his desire. We saw it coming out of Northridge High School. When people forget, 3 years ago, a lot of people said he couldn't play for Alabama.
Yeah.
He proved them wrong.
They did. They sure did. Said he got a scholarship because his dad was a coach. You remember that?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good player. All those players looking to make it big at the next level, and it all started for them, of course, when they were recruited to Alabama. Now, the Crimson Tide made another recruiting splash this past weekend with an offensive line commitment from Washington, D.C., a familiar name, Richie Petitbon. his grandfather, the longtime NFL defensive back and defensive coordinator of the Washington Redskins. But this is a young man looking to build his own legacy. And, Rodney, he's very athletic, reminds some people of Barrett Jones.
I think that's a good comparison in terms of coming out of high school. You know, the versatility, the athleticism that he has, and, you know, kind of his style of play and his mentality, really, Gary. I mean, I think he has a very positive mentality. I think he's one of those guys that can be very positive in terms of, you know, helping those around him. And so I think he's a really big pickup for several reasons. But you mentioned his versatility, Gary. He played there he is at left tackle. He can play right tackle. He can play the guard spot. He could possibly even play center.
And we'll take a look at the numbers for Richie Petitbon in terms of his height and his weight. 296, he's very streamlined. Not a lot of, you know, loose weight on this young man. He's a very athletic-looking lineman, 4-star according to Rivals.com. And as you said, Rod, versatility. Much like Barrett Jones, could probably play all 3 spots across the offensive line. Well, you know, football is a dynasty, certainly at the University of Alabama, but there is another athletic dynasty, women's gymnastics, winners of 6 national championships, and now the owner of an NCAA record 29 regional championships. The ladies took home the Seattle regional title on Saturday night. That means they'll advance to Birmingham for next weekend's NCAA championships. Sarah Patterson says they're excited to compete, obviously, for an opportunity to win the program's 7th national championship.
Anytime you have the opportunity to be competing for a national championship, I don't think that opportunity ever gets old, and I don't think you ever take it for granted. I feel like the university has placed us in a great position over the last 30 years to just represent this great institution and to be a part of excellence and tradition.
Alabama has a tough draw now in terms of getting out of their draw and getting to the Super 6. 3 teams who have won national championships will be in that evening session along with the Crimson Tide. Of course, attendance should be off the charts with it being held in nearby Birmingham at the BJCC. Much more coming up on this edition of Tider Insider Television, including a look at the Rising Tide baseball team. Rodney, they're hot. Another solid weekend means another bump in the polls. How high has Mitch Gaspard's group gone up? We'll talk about it next. And we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information again on the screen, 205-348-9882. That's 348-WVUA. There's the email address and the Twitter account. Get in contact with us. We'd like to hear from you. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV presented by Buffalo Rock. You know, it wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Alabama baseball took 2 of 3 from Texas A&M on the road this past weekend, and that bumped the Tide back into the top 10 in the collegiate baseball poll in a while. They are ranked number 9th in the country heading into this weekend's series against Auburn at home. Coach Saban will throw out the first pitch on Friday night. You don't want to miss that. Alabama's scheduled to play UAB tonight, but that game's been postponed until tomorrow night because of the rain. All right, Rodney, people all the time are telling me I can never get through on Tider Insider TV. Well, right now is your opportunity. Phone lines are open, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. So call now. If you ever wanted a chance to get through, do so. All right, we got an email to take, though, Rodney, an email and a tweet that have come in to us. First email from Craig in Gardendale. Does the Eddie Jackson injury mean guys like Marlon Humphrey could have more of an opportunity this fall? Well, Rodney, as we discussed, it probably has a lot to do with the way he comes back from the injury, but certainly Marlon Humphrey factors into the cornerback race even with a healthy Eddie Jackson. So, yeah, he's going to get a look, I know.
Sure. Certainly he would get an opportunity and a quick look. And, you know, again, with an injury like that, it certainly opens more doors for, you know, everybody in terms of opportunity. So, you know, we'll have to see exactly, you know, how Marlon pans out when he gets here in fall camp.
We're seeing something here, too, that he brings to the table. He's exciting with the ball in his hand, and I know you've got Christian Jones. I know there are many other guys on this team capable of returning punts and kicks, but Coach Saban's been known to use more than one guy. Is there potential for Marlon Humphrey to factor in?
Well, you remember Christian Jones had to step in for Marquise Mays.
Right.
You remember certainly in the national championship game against LSU, so there's always an opportunity there. And you mentioned other guys. I'll tell you another guy's a sensational kick return, sensational punt return, Tony Brown. You're talking about opening doors of opportunities. He's going through spring practice. I know he's hurt his shoulder, but, you know, Tony Brown's another young cornerback that certainly is going to have continue to have an opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of young talent at a need position, cornerback, And, of course, the kicking game, Coach Saban has a history of putting some of his best athletes on both the return and coverage units in the kicking game. All right, we got a tweet that came in regards to baseball. People starting to get pumped up about baseball. Is this Alabama baseball team capable of making a College World Series run? That's from Trixie Ty 2010. Well, Rod, you know, it's been 1999. You know, when Coach Wells first got here, man, they nearly won it in 1997. They went, I think, in 1996. They won in 1999, but they haven't been in 15 years. And do I think this team is capable of making a run? Yeah, I do. Right now, 8-4 in the SEC. A lot of baseball left, but 8-4 leads the Western Division. And if you play at the top of the SEC, you got a chance to host a regional and a super regional. And if you can play at the top of the SEC, you got a chance to get to Omaha, right?
Still a lot of baseball to play, Gary. And you mentioned, though, the pitching's been good. And so certainly anytime you have that, you have an opportunity to win. And it seems like this team kind of has a little bit more of a lot more confidence in what they played with in the past. So again, yeah, I mean, but it's still, again, very early, a lot of baseball to be played. You know, you mentioned that going back to Coach Wells, Gary. I mean, Alabama went in the mid-90s, what, 2 years in a row, go to Omaha, #1 in the country. I mean, you know, he had that program, right, one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the country there for a few years.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the great starting pitching this past weekend, though. On Friday night and on Saturday, the bats really helped out a lot. The bats have gotten better. They're hitting at a better clip, and the starting pitching is there, the bullpen is there, so when they hit, they've got a chance to beat anybody on their schedule. As I mentioned, the huge series coming up this weekend, Auburn in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Coach Saban throwing out the first pitch on Friday night. Well, more TITV is coming up next. Another fast-rising Crimson Tide team found themselves with a sizable bump in the national polls this week as well. We'll talk about them next. Plus more of your phone calls, hopefully your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen. Interact with us. Now is an opportunity to get through 205-348-9882. Or again, you can email us or send us a tweet the way those last couple of people did, and we'll answer those questions for you as well. We'll be right back with more Tider Insider TV right after this. Alabama softball remains at the top of the SEC standings, and they're getting awfully close to the top of the national polls. After sweeping Arkansas over the weekend, Alabama finds itself at #2 in the nation, according to the ESPN.com poll. Alabama's on the road this coming weekend at Mississippi State. They've got UAB at home tomorrow night, then at Mississippi State. We'll have the UAB game on television for you tomorrow night. Of course, the Mississippi State game. Van Studeman, the former pitching coach, is now the head coach over there at Starkville. She's building a good program. That should be fun. All right, Rod, let's head back to the phone lines. We'll go ahead to the phone lines for the first time. Our buddy from Anniston, Harold, is with us. Hey, Harold, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Very well.
Hey, my question is, with this playoff coming this season, man, you think Alabama got a chance to finish it in the top 4?
No doubt, Harold. I mean, for the past, other than 2010, they would have been in it in 2008, 2009, 2011, 2012, and last year. So 5 of the last 6 years under this format, Alabama would have made it into the top 4. Again, last year, even with a loss to Auburn, if this system had been in place, and it wasn't, but they would have turned around and played Auburn again as the 2 and 3 seeds. And I think Florida State was the 1 seed, obviously, and was it Stanford that was the #4 seed at that time?
Can't remember,
but it would have been Florida State against somebody and Alabama against Auburn. So, yeah, Harold, you got to go out and you got to play, you got to win the games, but I think there's an excellent chance that Alabama will be in that playoff.
Well, again, it's early. You know, you really never know how teams are going to progress. Who would have thought Auburn would have been as good as they were coming off a 3-9 season last year? So, again, we really don't know exactly. At this point, it's really early. But I think when you look at Alabama, Gary, we've talked about this. You know, there's a lot of pieces in place, but you know there are some question marks. You're replacing a quarterback that went 36-2. You know you've got some offensive line shuffling going along. You've lost Anthony Steen, you lost Cyrus Kwanjo, 2 of your better players up front, and you know again there's some young guys defensively. So there's still some questions. You got to find some corners, and so you know we'll see how it goes. But certainly I think Alabama has the ingredients to be there.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of you got to play the entire season. But you know if you're asking me if I think Alabama's got a good chance, the answer for me is yes, I do. Again, like I said, they would have been in it 5 of the last 6 years. Based on the system the way it is, and it might have been Michigan State might have been #4. I'm sure somebody will call and tell us, but good question, and yeah, I'll say this, and that's part of being at Alabama. If the Tide's not in that playoff, Crimson Tide fans are going to be disappointed. That I can tell you. A lot like Kentucky basketball, it's win a championship or else. All right, let's go to the email again, and this is from Benny in Cottondale. Coach Saban didn't seem impressed with the defensive line. He's talking about Saturday. Are there some issues there? Another great point, and I think the issue is that they're replacing some really good guys, and I think there's been an assumption from some that, you know, they're just going to roll these guys out from junior college and high school and have this dominating defensive line. And as you said, Rodney, there's a lot of football left to be practiced and played, and they're still developing this particular unit.
Right, and again, I think when he said that, again, it was, you know, last week, and he was certainly, as you mentioned, Gary, he wanted to make sure that, you know, hey, nobody's arrived yet, and I think that was his main point. There's a lot of work to be done, and they do have some talented young players when you look at those guys. You mentioned the 2 junior college players coming in. I think it's going to make a significant impact. Jaron Reed, DJ Petway, certainly. I think he's going to be an outstanding pass rusher. You know, Ashawn Robinson, Jonathan Allen, Dalvin Tomlinson. I'm really excited to see him, Gary, because I think he has a lot of potential. You know, last year there was a lot of expectations surrounding Dalvin Tomlinson and the things that he would bring, and then he went down with the knee injury, and I know he's really motivated.
You know, we mentioned losing Eddie Jackson in the secondary. Darren Lake was having a great spring. Torn pec, the nose tackle, inside defensive lineman. His loss has hurt some. He's got a chance to be a really good player when he comes back. But we're nearing the finish of this edition of TITV. Next, we'll tell you what's coming up for the week ahead in Crimson Tide athletics. It's a rainy evening in Tuscaloosa.
Looks like snow almost, doesn't it? Frozen.
No, it's not snow, but that's a good shot of the stadium and a little bit of raindrops on the camera. We'll be back after this. Another busy week for baseball and softball. They've both got UAB tomorrow night. Again, baseball postponed until tomorrow night. Then baseball hosts Auburn. Softball's at Mississippi State. Men's tennis in action. Women's tennis on the road. And, of course, gymnastics in a couple of weeks for the NCAA championships. Good news for a couple of former Crimson Tiders. Terrence Cody signing a 1-year extension with the Ravens. He's going to make over $700,000. And Orlando McClain, after sitting out a year, wants to come back. And the Ravens and Ozzie Newsome own his NFL rights. So maybe he'll be back in the NFL this season. We'll keep our fingers crossed for him. He says he's ready to play. Well, that's going to do it for the program. Hey, go to the locker room. Get some of this original elephant wear, and you'll start as Rodney and I do. That's going to do it for the program. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good night.